Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc walked out of the Qatar GP looking like two drivers who had finally hit breaking point. This wasn't normal frustration, and it wasn't the usual post-race disappointment Ferrari fans have become numb to. This was the kind of anger that comes when both drivers realize the fight is over. Not because they gave up, but because the car, the strategy, and the season itself collapsed beneath them. Qatar wasn't just another bad weekend. It was the moment the SF25's problems, Ferrari's decisions, and months of denial all came crashing into the open for the world to see. Hamilton spent the entire race wrestling a car that wouldn't respond. A strategy that boxed him into midfield traffic and tire rules that punished every weakness the Ferrari already had. Leclerc wasn't any better off, stuck behind slower cars, pushing to the limit just to survive, not to attack. By the time the checkered flag fell, both drivers knew exactly what the result meant. Ferrari had officially lost the fight for second in the Constructors Championship. The points deficit is now too big, the performance gap too wide, and the team's internal issues too deep to ignore. Post-race reactions said everything. A mix of disbelief, anger, and exhaustion that perfectly captured the disaster Qatar really was. Because this race didn't just expose the SF25's instability, lack of downforce, or inconsistent balance. It exposed the consequences of Ferrari abandoning development early, the strategic hesitation that cost them track position today, and the operational cracks that have been widening all season. Hamilton and Leclerc gave everything and still finished nowhere. And that's why they're fuming, because Qatar wasn't just a defeat, it was the confirmation that Ferrari's 2025 season is finished long before the championship ends. Stick around until the end, because the details behind Hamilton and Leclerc's fury will genuinely shock you. And the truth about Ferrari's Qatar disaster is far worse than anyone realized. Hamilton and Leclerc left Qatar carrying a level of frustration that went far beyond the usual disappointment of a bad race weekend. This wasn't a momentary collapse or a one-off failure. It was the culmination of every weakness, every structural flaw, and every missed development step. Ferrari has dragged throughout 2025. The drivers weren't angry because the car was slow. They were angry because the car is fundamentally incapable of delivering the performance that a team with Ferrari's resources, history, and expectations should provide. The Qatar Grand Prix didn't expose a single problem. It exposed the entire architecture of the SF25 and the project behind it. Hamilton's reaction alone told you everything about the depth of the crisis. 12th place wasn't just disappointing. It was humiliating for a driver who entered the season believing Ferrari had the tools to fight for wins. He knew from the first few laps that the car had nothing to give. The balance was unstable. The rear was constantly threatening to step out, and the platform refused to stay connected under load. Hamilton said openly that Ferrari's problems extend well beyond the SF25. And coming from someone who normally avoids such direct criticism, that comment carried enormous weight. He wasn't hinting at setup. He wasn't hinting at tires. He was hinting at a deeper structural vulnerability within the operation itself, the kind that takes more than an update package to fix. Evidence backs him up. Ferrari made sweeping adjustments throughout the weekend, switching aero configurations, shifting balance, altering suspension parameters, hoping to find even a hint of predictability. None of it worked. Every outing produced the same symptoms: snapping at corner entry, bouncing in high-speed sections, and a complete lack of rear stability when the tires were fresh. Hamilton described the changes as improvements on paper, but useless in reality. The idea that a Formula One team could throw so many variations at the car and see no performance shift reveals just how tapped out the SF25 concept truly is. When a car stops responding to adjustments, it means the problem is no longer superficial. It's structural. Leclerc's experience was equally damning. His 8th place was a number that hid just how much he had to wrestle the car to keep it on track. He admitted he was taking incredible risks in qualifying just to find enough grip to make the top 10. That high-speed spin in Q3 wasn't a misjudgment. It was the natural outcome of a car that resists every attempt to extract performance from it. Leclerc looked drained when speaking to the media. For a driver usually calm and analytical, saying the weekend hurts a lot was unusually emotional. But the reason behind that emotion was clear. He genuinely believed in the early months of the season that Ferrari had built something capable Qatar shattered that belief entirely. Their frustrations were amplified by how easily rival cars passed them, a situation both drivers found deeply embarrassing. Hamilton pointed out that Ferrari were struggling just to keep a Williams behind, and Leclerc admitted that the car's behavior this weekend can't be explained purely by shifting development to 2026. That admission was powerful. Ferrari may have stopped upgrading the SF25 early, but that alone cannot explain the magnitude of the deficit they faced at Lusail. Both drivers described the car as extremely difficult to drive, fundamentally inconsistent, and unpredictable across corner types. That kind of instability suggests deeper aerodynamic flaws issues with load distribution, platform control, and mechanical integration. Gasly's remark to Hamilton, observing from behind that the Ferrari looks so bad, only added fuel to the fire. When a rival can visibly see the instability of your car from the cockpit of his own, the problem is crossed into public territory. Hamilton's sarcastic reply demonstrated not disrespect, but exhaustion. Even his humor sounded like someone who has reached the limit of patience. Drivers hate making excuses. But when another competitor confirms the problem from a trackside perspective, there is no hiding anymore. The strategic picture only worsened things. The tire life limit meant the race lacked overtaking opportunities, and Hamilton's 18th place starting position guaranteed a lonely afternoon and no tools to compensate for the car's instability.